What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Nuts and Bolts Sports. Raj, Jordan, Henry. As always, we're talking about the NBA returns. We're talking about the NBA Finals. We got 3 games in the books. A little bit more interesting series than I think a lot of us would have assumed. I guess how many days ago? Like 3 days ago, we would have said, this series is kind of done after the Bam and Dragic injuries and whatnot. But, we talked about it sort of at the top of this series also, that this Miami team, despite the fact that there were injuries and I at least myself didn't get too deep into them. I know you guys talked about them a little bit at the end of last week. But that is not a reason to count out this Miami team because they have a player like Jimmy G Buckets who showed up yesterday and had one of the greatest performances in finals history, if we're being completely honest. But before we get into all that stuff, I do want to plug Nuts and Bolts Sports. We're back on the map, in big time. We got a merch store now. Here, let me pull up the URL for you guys all real quick. We'll be sure to put it in our description and stuff too, but be sure to visit the Nuts and Bolts Sports merch store. I'll plug it again at the end with the URL, but and like I said, we'll put it all in the description. But we got some really cool designs, with our sort of slogans and whatnot. We got Sports Critic on there, passion and professionalism, hungry and humble, some great stuff, some great designs. So be sure to look out for that as well. But let's go ahead and now get into this, and let's backtrack, I guess. You guys talked about Game 1 on, what was it, Friday? So we got Game 2 over the weekend, and again, sort of bouncing off those injuries, we were kind of unsure about what the status of Dragic and Bam were coming into that game. They were originally listed as questionable, then they were moved to doubtful, and then they were completely ruled out for that entire game. So kind of put a damper on the beginning of that game too. I think, Miami might have even come out there a little bit lethargic. They just kind of look like a different team in general. And this Miami team has sort of fought back from adversity, but this was the first time where I feel like in this game too specifically, we saw sort of a different looking Miami team that didn't quite look as plugged in, as energized as they had throughout the rest of the playoffs. And I think those injuries just demoralized them in that game too, and they did recover in Game 3. But you saw a lot of people comparing it like varsity JV teams and stuff like that. It was just kind of a wash of a game, if we're being completely honest. The score, I think, doesn't even quite reflect how tight this game was. I think Miami sort of fought back, if I'm remembering correctly, because it was a while back. Miami was sort of out of it for most of it, and they fought back a little bit in the fourth quarter, but then LA kind of took over again at the end and ended up winning by 12. But I'll toss it to you, Jordan, first. Coming off this LA victory in Game 2, what were you kind of feeling about the injuries and the way that the series might have swung after the Bam and Dragic going down and whatnot?
Yeah, I mean, it stinks. It's one of those things. I'm over here obviously pulling for the Lakers as I have all postseason, but at the same time, you never want to see anybody not at full strength, and especially two guys who are such key pieces to what Miami's done. Dragic and Bam, you could really make the case that they were their second and third best players all throughout the postseason. So I hope that they're able to come back. I know Dragic, the outlook on him is pretty negative at this point. Bam has been upgraded to questionable for Game 4. I imagine he's going to see the floor. I think he's dying to get out there. So it kind of stunk. It definitely took some of the air out of the first game and a half from second quarter of Game 1 on. So I'm not surprised LA was able to go up 2-0. They obviously, LeBron and AD came out were very, very good. The two of them, once again, they combined for 65 points, 23 rebounds, and 10 assists. I mean, you have your two stars doing that, you're generally going to win ball games. And give Miami credit, they stayed in it. They didn't, they kind of got their doors blown in Game 1. They didn't really know how to adjust without Bam and Dragic, but they really made the best of it in Game 2, kept it as close as possible, as you said, going into the fourth. And then LA did just pull away late with some big plays. But, as we're going to talk about here with Game 3, I mean, Miami just, Miami, Spoelstra, they just make adjustments. They do not quit. They are the definition of dogs. They have such a big fight in them. It's been painful to root against them. I've loved watching them. It pains me. I can't. Any other time I'd come in here with the Jimmy Butler commercial, we'd be playing the music, I'd be all ready to go. And I mean, that's obviously the main point of Game 3, right? It's just how phenomenal Jimmy Butler was. He's really been good all series, but he's really phenomenal in Game 3. And we talked about this before we went on. I'm not surprised of the way Game 3 went. I know the Lakers were huge favorites and this and that, yada, yada, but there was just something about Miami's energy to start the game. It was like, okay, this is a locked-in team. They've made their adjustments. They've realized that they are missing pieces, but they're going to go to war with what they have. And LA just didn't match the energy. It was a classic Sunday letdown. My theory on teams in the NBA playing on football Sundays, they never want to do it. They're just like us. They want to sit at home and they want to watch football and chill. And the Lakers are no exception to that. Miami's like a different breed, but I think the Lakers came out lackluster. AD picked up 2 fouls, and they kind of just never stood up to the challenge. They got punched in the mouth. So it definitely makes it an interesting series, moving forward, especially if Bam does come back, if he's able to even be at least like 80, 85%. I know, Henry could probably talk a little bit more. What did you see from, Miami that kind of swung the game in their favor for, game 3?
Jimmy Butler. I was like, the main thing I saw. I mean, he had a 40-point triple-double. I saw an interesting statistic, actually, that he's the first player in the NBA Finals against LeBron James that he outscored, out-rebound, and out-assisted LeBron in that game. That says a lot about LeBron, in terms of like how he's always been the dominant competition, but that also says a lot about Jimmy Butler. I don't know if you guys saw his like pregame interview with Rachel Nichols and just glimpses of him before the game, but he was very, very optimistic. He was jumping around and everything. I was like, that could backfire, because we've seen some players be a little bit too optimistic against the Lakers, and that didn't go too well. But I feel like he has this dog mentality that we've just been talking about so much, that he knew what he had to do that night, and it was either put the team completely on his back, but not like in a hero ball type of way, in a way where he gets everybody involved, because he did have a triple double. But I think the other thing that I saw that really intrigued me was the play of Kelly Olynyk. I feel like Kelly Olynyk is starting to gain that finals confidence, because game 3 was kind of his showing up party in a way. You can see the way he's been very resilient with the ball and moving without the ball, stopping Anthony Davis. And also I like the solid play that Myers Leonard has been doing. Before the finals, he's only played like 3 minutes. It was kind of crazy, and like now he goes into the starting role. The thing that I just don't get is, why is Eric Spoelstra starting Myers Leonard if he's only going to play 13 minutes? I don't know what type of strategy he's trying to do with that, but it worked in game 3. So I like what I see. I like the readjustments from Eric Spoelstra. I just want to see if that's going to be able to carry on into game 4, because we all know what the Lakers are capable of. Roger, what do you think are the key factors for the Lakers to make this a 3-1 series?
Yeah, I think the Lakers, there's a lot of things that happened in game 3 that didn't go in the Lakers' favor, and we started off talking about LeBron, and LeBron kind of carried that momentum that he had from that game in Denver, that final game in Denver, over to this series, and showed up in both those first 2 games. You talk about his line in game 2, especially. You forgot to mention that he had 0 turnovers, and we found the stat that he was the only player other than Magic Johnson to do that in NBA history to have 20 points, 9 assists, and 0 turnovers. In a game, I believe, is the statistic. So that's that's impressive in itself. But here's me going back on what I've been saying, for who knows how long. Here's my official admitting it on the podcast. Anthony Davis has been spectacular, or was spectacular, in those first 2 games, and he was the reason that this Lakers team won. He dominated them inside. He took Bam out of the game in the first game. He completely eliminated Bam from the lineup, especially when they played him in those center minutes, when they took Dwight and JaVale out of the game. Anthony Davis was so good in those center minutes, and I did not expect to see that just because he was up against Bam. I expected him to play decent, but I didn't expect him to play better than he even played against Jokic at the center position. That was kind of shocking to me. So to see him sort of set that tone in game 1 was crucial. And then he carried that over into game 2 and didn't let it go. Henry, the point that you make about Myers Leonard, I actually like the starting of Myers Leonard over the starting of Kelly Olynyk, because Kelly Olynyk is not going to play defense. Myers Leonard is going to give you a better defensive presence against AD, and even if it is just for 13 to 15 minutes, it's going to be sort of upfront. It's going to give Anthony Davis that pressure, and it's going to make him work for his points. But he fought for those points, and he got them in game 2. And game 3 is sort of the product of what we saw in that Denver series a lot against the Lakers. Is Anthony Davis. The reason that entire thing swung is because Anthony Davis was fouled. He was in foul trouble. He had 2 fouls early in the game, picked up a 3rd one, then picked up a 4th one. He was just basically taken out of the rotation, and in a series where he has been the Lakers' best player, for him to be taken out of the lineup is brutal. It's brutal for that team. And then you have Jimmy Buckets dropping one of the greatest games I've ever seen personally from an individual standpoint. Ever. It was kind of ridiculous to watch him firing on all cylinders. You mentioned the 40-point triple-double, 70% from the field. He's in a group of 2 or 3 other guys that have ever done it. Charles Barkley being one of them, Wilt being one of them, just kind of an elite class in terms of the number that he puts up. And he certainly outplayed LeBron yesterday. LeBron did not look like the same player yesterday that we had seen in the first couple games. It was basically just a dud for the Lakers. I assume that it was because that 80 thing sort of took them out of their momentum. Looking ahead now to answer your question, Henry, in terms of what could result in a 3-1 Lakers lead, I still don't think that this is going to shift the momentum in Miami's favor. I think that, LA dropped one game against every single team that they played so far. This is the same position they were in against Denver, where they dropped that game 3. I don't necessarily know if that's a momentum swinger. Where I think it is crucial, though, is that it does give the rest time, additional time for Bam to, even if he's questionable for this next game, he could sit out and he could still come back for that game 5 and still make an impact there. Even if they're down 3-1, that's still better than being completely eliminated in a sweep 4-0, right? It gives them that opportunity. It opens that door for them. I don't think LA is worried about a Jimmy Butler-led team without Dragic and Bam on the floor. But this one win gives them that extra padding of 2 days for maybe Bam to get healthy enough to come into the lineup. And Jordan, you make the point of him playing, even if it's 80 to 85%, that is better than a Kelly Olynyk or a Myers Leonard out there, especially more defensive presence against AD. I don't imagine. I don't think Bam is going to have as bad of a game as he did in game 1. If he comes in there, even if he is injured, I think he's going to show up. He's going to have a little bit more he's going to have that fire under him. We saw it in that Celtics series where he was like, I played bad, came out the next game and dropped 32 points and was a monster in that game. The reason that the Heat won. I think that that's key. I don't know. Do either of you guys see that being the case of Bam actually maybe subbing into the lineup here?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's been itching to get in since the second he went out in game 1. I mean, everything you've seen, him and Dragic, I mean, they've both been very emotional talking about not being able to play. You can see, I mean, this is what they've worked for all year, right? This is what they put in all the hours, and they've bonded with their guys, grinded with them, been through the trenches and all the playoffs, and now they're here. And to see them get taken away, I think that hurts them a lot. So I think they're working as hard as they can to get back. It definitely seems like Bam has a much higher chance than Dragic, and I'm sure he's in the ear of the trainer saying, hey, just clear me. Do anything you have to do to clear me, any shots, any medicine, whatever it is, to get him to play. So I do think he will play game 4. It may be they may have a minutes restriction. They may have to pull some strings to get him in there, maybe for 6 minutes at a time or something like that each quarter. But I'm sure Miami will find a way to get him in there, and I think he will be effective. He's too good of a player, too smart of a player, and too hardworking to not be effective in any kind of capacity. Another thing with the Lakers too, that obviously the AD team took him out of the rhythm. LeBron kind of was lethargic through spots. But the whole team as a whole, I thought LA as a whole was just going through the motions. I think it was the natural. We're up 2-0. Two of their best 3 players are out, and we should cruise and go up 3-0. And their foot was off the gas. And Miami is not a team you could do that with, right? Like you could do it with other teams who maybe aren't as gritty, I guess would be the word. But Miami just is not going to roll over. And LA just made the mistake of assuming that. The first quarter was atrocious. I mean, they had 10 turnovers in the first quarter. It seemed like every possession they were just making sloppy passes. There was no ball movement on offense. Everything was stagnant, turned into one-on-one. So it was just a bad game all around. The only positive I guess I took away from it is that they obviously have responded after a loss, winning. They've won every game after a loss in this postseason. And Miami played Jimmy obviously played a flawless game. Miami as a whole played a very good game team-wise. They made one mistake late. And it's not Jimmy. It's not Jimmy saying that they're in trouble, because Jimmy gets a pass in my book. Jimmy is at a level. You have a 40-point triple double and you outplay LeBron in the finals game. You can say whatever you want. That's star. You get a Disney fast pass. You're there, bro. But Tyler Hero hitting that layup on Rondo and doing a little.
Can anybody do it? I can't. It's weird.
No,
I feel uncomfortable doing it.
Yeah, it's he made a little mistake, and I know it's silly, but.
No, you're right.
Rusted the shimmy. Westbrook was talking trash, and Jamal did the little shimmy at the end of game 3. And the Lakers take note of that. I'm telling you, it sounds silly, but they're taking notes. I mean, they even admitted so much after the game too, right? Like Markieff Morris was like, "We're gonna watch film tomorrow. And we're all gonna get chewed out." Like LeBron, everyone's making a big deal about LeBron, like walking off the court with 10 seconds up. You know why? Because he's pissed. He's pissed at himself. He's pissed at his team.
Really pissed. Yeah.
And I'm sure they went back to work today and they ripped each other apart in film. Talked about what they had to do. I'm sure they're gonna hold everybody's gonna hold each other accountable, and especially LeBron being the leader of that team is gonna hold everybody accountable. Because LeBron kind of saw this coming, right? At the end of game 2, even though they were even at the end of game 1 when they were not blowing the lead, but it really had shrunk down to 16 when it was a 35-point game. LeBron was getting frustrated with guys. Even in game 2 when they had leads and they were kind of taking their foot off the gas, LeBron was getting frustrated because he knows, he saw, he talked about Dallas's comeback into game 2 of 2011 when he was with the Heat. They had that big comeback in the 4th. He talked about, taking your foot off the gas and how you can give teams life and how you don't want to do that in the finals. So I think LeBron's going to hold everybody to a very high standard in game 4. I expect him to have a better game. I expect AD to hopefully not be in foul trouble. And I expect them to just come out a little bit more motivated. However, the caveat, I guess, is that Jimmy Butler is now playing like A+ level. I mean, I don't think we could talk enough about how phenomenal he was, really controlling the game on both ends. He was destructive on defense, and it was one of those things like he's not flashy. Like he's not like Steph Curry going to pull up from 35 feet. He didn't take a three.
Gets it done.
He's not like LeBron in his prime where he could come in and just dunk on 4 guys. Like it's never anything at the very front of the rim or the very back of the 3-point line. It's just all the stuff in between. And I mean, 40 points is impressive, but like for him, like he's a good passer. But I never thought like he was capable of back-to-back 13 assist games. I mean, he's averaging it's 3 games, but 29 and 10 and 7 in the finals is nothing to sneeze at. I mean, those are top-tier numbers, and I don't see them going away anytime soon. Especially you give him another lob threat and Bam, who was his buddy all year in the pick and roll game. I mean, I'm not like if we were doing like a panic meter like 1 to 10, like I'm at like a 3. Like I'm not like over here freaking out, but I'm also not taking it lightly because you don't want these guys to get going. This is not a team to play with, So I expect the Lakers to come out with more energy, but they're going to have to. This isn't, I say every game is must win as a joke, but like it is. Like you don't want to make this 2-2. Miami would have so much. The momentum would be right here in the middle of 2-2, and you just don't want that. And so we'll see what happens. I expect a better game. I expect LeBron to come out. I expect like a vintage LeBron performance, like not like Game 6 of 2013 or anything like that, but like something big, maybe like a Denver Game 5, like we saw, something where he just kind of sets the tone early.
You also mentioned like Jimmy Butler, 40 points, no 3-pointers even attempted in that game. It was all just based off 2s and free throws. That's all it was. He was just attacking the basket, getting his mid-range shot, and then going to the line. It was kind of incredible to see. I don't know, like I've said like multiple times here already. Like I don't know if I've ever seen a performance quite like that one, just as like sort of dominant and locked in and focused as Jimmy Butler was yesterday, and it paid off. And he sort of he did the ton at the end. What did he say there? What was the exact?
He said they're in trouble now.
They're in trouble, because I think LeBron told him they're in trouble, or you guys are in trouble at the end of the first.
Yeah. Oh, he was just giving it back. I don't think it was like out of context or anything. Jimmy's one of those dudes too. Like he has that. We talk about the cerebral guys, right? Like the LeBron. LeBron does it, I guess, but like really, MJ, Kobe, some of those guys that were like they'll take any slight as an excuse to get going. And I think Jimmy has kind of that mindset too. We just don't see it like
especially after the past few seasons where he's just been knocked down again and again in Minnesota and Philly. Yeah, exactly.
And so I think, man, he's one of those guys that's like, oh, LeBron said this to me after the first quarter. Okay. And like, he just remembers that. I mean, you could look at him sideways in the hallway, like in the arena, he'll remember it type of deal. So, and I love it about him. Like it pains me to root against him in the series because I really do enjoy his style of play. So he's phenomenal. And I expect him to be just as good moving forward.
Yeah, and Henry, you bring up the point about like the fact that he's the only player in history to outmatch LeBron in all 3 of those key categories at this stage in the game, and that you can't overlook that because LeBron is the one guy who never gets outmatched by anybody. Even if his team loses, he's usually still at the top of the stat line in sort of every single regard. I mean, this is the guy that's going to probably end his career top scoring in NBA history, one of the greatest passers that we've ever seen of all time. And for Jimmy Butler to go out there and dominate him in every single facet of the game, it wasn't even like a close matchup. LeBron was completely outmatched yesterday, and it was embarrassing for LeBron fans to watch Jimmy Butler go at him that way, and for LeBron to get torn apart the way, because we've never seen that before. We just never seen anybody take LeBron apart that way, and it was really incredible to see, honestly.
But LeBron, it's crazy to think that having a game of 25 points, 10 assists, and 8 rebounds is like lackluster for LeBron. For some players, that's a career game.
He sets the bar high for that.
Exactly. Yeah. So the thing is like we have. Especially, as a spectators, we have such high expectations for LeBron because we see what you don't make 9 out of the last 10 finals for no reason. Like he is in 2016, he led both the Cavs and the Warriors in each major statistical category. It's never been done. And it's kind of amazing to see. So for Jimmy Butler to do this, especially in a crucial finals game, I was like, okay, now Jordan, you were talking about momentum, but I kind of do think that the momentum has shifted just because Jimmy Butler finally got that like mental game going as well. I don't think Tyler Hero. What do you think LeBron's going to remember more? Jimmy Butler saying he's in trouble, or Tyler Hero with his small?
It's going to be the hero. It's going to be the hero, I think, just because what Jordan's saying, like Jimmy did outmatch him, so he kind of has the right to do that.
Yeah.
Hero was not great.
Hero shooting 28% from 3.
He's shooting pretty bad in this series, and he was not. I mean, he was not great yesterday. I know he's 17 points, and that was a big bucket, but he was not. he shot 29% from three yesterday and only 33 overall from the field. Like, he's not been good in this series. And LeBron's definitely gonna take note of that. He's gonna be like, rookie, like, find your place. Like, this is not the time for you to be messing around with me. And I know that, like, we all know that LeBron's gonna have that bounce back game. I imagine that AD is also gonna have that bounce back game because I don't expect him to get in foul trouble. I assume that he's gonna play smarter and hopefully he won't get some of those ticky-tack fouls that he did get yesterday. I think he got like 2 of them throughout that first half. But is that enough? Especially if Bam does return. I think in game 2 we saw that was enough. But this Miami team did look like a different team yesterday in game 3. I imagine that they're going to bring that level of focus and that momentum into game 4. And if Bam does end up playing in game 4, is LeBron and AD combined for 60 whatever points? Is that enough? Because like the role players have still not been great. I know Kuzma went and got his redemption because he had that petition that he's not going to get his ring, so he went and got 19 yesterday. But that was not a fair 19 or anything like that. Like, I mean, you look across the board, LA's role players in these entire playoffs, other than Rondo, have been pretty bad, and they still have not shown up in this final series.
Markieff Morris had 19 points,
but even then, a lot of that came in garbage time too, didn't it? Like it was
garbage time.
Yeah, it wasn't. Yeah. It wasn't. Markieff Morris has been one of the worst players on this team throughout these playoffs. So he's gone out there. He's gotten like 5 fouls in every single game that he's played. Maybe ended with like 2 to 3 points.
He's lost on defense.
Yeah, he's been pretty bad, which sucks because that was a pretty big pickup for them during the regular season when they did sign him. So sucks to see that. But is LeBron and AD enough to handle this Miami team carrying off this momentum? And if Bam comes back, or even if you want to talk about it without Bam, like is that enough for them to take this next game and pull back in that 3-1 lead?
I think it is if it's LeBron and AD on their A game, because I think LeBron and AD on their A game means all the attention's on them, which means LA gets wide open looks. And that's what we've talked about, right? Like regular 3-point shooting wise in the playoffs, the Lakers are the second worst team. But wide open, like 6+ feet of space, they're the first, I forget it was best or second best. So it's a huge difference for them when they're wide open. And how do you get wide open? It's LeBron going off early in the first quarter, and all of a sudden he's getting double teams in the post or on drives. It's AD going off and getting 3 lobs early, and all of a sudden he's getting the double team, and Miami's trying to scramble. So those two guys have to – they're essential in the fact that they're 2 stars. They have to play well, but they also have to set the tone early, get Miami's defense kind of moving and trying to make adjustments early in the game, and then freeing up those guys. And obviously knocking down the shots is still the end result. You still have to – it's a make or miss league, as like the saying goes. But I feel like the Lakers are much more comfortable, and just like anybody else, when you have a lot of space, when you have some freedom, and you don't have guys like Iggy and Crowder closing up on you. I think that's going to be key. But it starts with those two getting going. I think at the end of the day, when it's like we talked about, you have the best 2 players in the series. Although Jimmy is certainly making a case now, that should be enough. That should be the trump card. But we'll see.
Yeah, what do you got, Henry?
I was gonna ask you guys, like, especially Jordan, because I know you're the Laker fan. Are you kind of worried that Danny Green is gonna fall out of the rotation just because he's been playing so bad? And it's kind of worrisome, to see him play very not Danny Green like. So seeing him, probably start coming off the bench. I mean, JaVale McGee's getting no minutes now. So
that's okay.
Yeah. So is that you're fine with that?
Yeah, JaVale, I'm fine with. Danny Green. I've been trying to think since the start of like the Western Conference Finals, if I've ever seen a situation where a guy has just gone from like decent shooting wise and defensively to just downright awful. I mean, he's really been bad.
Al Horford earlier this year.
Yeah, it must be like Al Horford. To me, I have 2 things on it. One, it seems like he did nothing during the break. It seems like he was a guy who sat at home, didn't touch a basketball, didn't exercise, did nothing, because he looks just lost on both ends. His jumper has no confidence. And the other thing is, I guess, because I'm always predicting things, I'll start taking bets now as to like what off-season surgery is Danny Green going to be announced as having? Is it hip? Is it a thigh? Is it a knee? It's something, because I watch him run, and he runs like he's 85 years old. He doesn't move well, vertically, laterally. It just doesn't look good. I'm not using injury as an excuse. You had all this time off. I don't know. It's one of those things, like, because he could have a good game. Like, he had a decent game too, shooting wise. So you can't take him out of the rotation. They need all the guards they can, especially with what Miami does. But at the same time, I have zero confidence when he's out there. Like, he gets the ball, and I'm like, you could just pass it. Like,
do you have confidence in anybody else other than Rondo and Caruso on that team?
Caruso +8, don't forget.
Yeah.
I mean, to be honest, Kuzma's at his best when he's cutting, and he did have a good shooting game yesterday. He doesn't always have those. He's at his best when he's cutting. I think his defense has been a little bit better. because he's got a little bit of a personal matchup with Tyler Hero.
Did he earn his championship ring yesterday? Was
yeah, 100%. I honestly I felt bad he got asked that in public by reporters. Like the fact that you even have to ask that, like this is not like a scrub. Like this guy can play in this league. He's a decent enough player to earn a spot in a rotation. Yeah. So I think he can play well. I think Caruso can play well. Rondo has kind of fallen back down to earth here. I do expect him to start picking up. Hopefully he's figuring out, it's kind of his feel out a couple of games to figure out what's going on. Markieff has been, defensively, I think he's terrible, but he has hit some shots for them. He's had, helped them out in some spots. So it's tough. It's really, like I said, it's going to be LeBron and AD, and then you need like 1 to 2 other guys to step up every game. And we talked about it could be any 2. It's like take your pick, but you don't know who you're going to get until the game starts. Mm-hmm. So we'll see. It's going to be interesting. I expect. I'm sure they had a whole day of film where they just pointed out everything. I'm sure there was a lot of good confrontation, like they talk about holding guys accountable. It's an awkward thing to do. Like Boston had their, explosive meeting there after the game, but it's all in the name of like holding guys accountable and winning. And if anybody knows, winning and making it far, it's LeBron. So he has the guys' respect. AD seems like he's very focused on the same page. And they've talked about too, like Rondo talked about how AD has called out LeBron throughout the year for certain things, which nobody you think would ever dare to do, but like LeBron respects it because it's coming from a good place. As long as it's never personal, right? It's just business. Like you're just out there trying to do a job and win. So I think they're going to be, okay. I'm hoping they're going to win game 4. I think they can and will win game 4. I would not expect a blowout of any sort. I think this is going to come down to who can execute better in the 4th. And I'm just hoping that LeBron and AD are on their A games.
Jordan, I know you told us this sort of before we got on the show. You got a little like fun list that you wanted to go over here.
Made a list.
Yeah, what you got for us?
Yeah, so we've highlighted a little bit, but we could spend 45 minutes talking about how amazing Jimmy was. So it kind of got me thinking. I went back and I looked up over the last 10 years. So basically, if we include this playoffs, 10 years technically takes us to 2011. There really wasn't anything in the 2010 finals that was like worthy of the list anyway. It's just a list of what I think like the best single game performances. It's kind of based on everything, right? It's based on the magnitude of the game. Was game 1, game 7. Mm-hmm. You look at Basketball Reference. They had like the game score, so you can kind of judge off that. Which I think Butler's was the 3rd highest ever in the finals since they started keeping track. Yeah. Obviously like the numbers count. Did your team win? Like how were they just stats within the flow of the game as opposed to controlling the game, etc. So this is in no order. I'm literally going chronologically. So feel free to like rank them in your head as I do it. So I did switch one before we talked because you did bring up a good point about this first one, which is the first one I have here is 2013 LeBron, game 7. I originally had 2015 LeBron. It was like game 4. They didn't win, but he was like, 45, 10, and 11. But they didn't win. He was, that was a tough year because those got Kyrie and Love were hurt. So I felt LeBron 13, game 7, 37, 12, and 4. The go-ahead buckets late over Kawhi, like really clinched, obviously, that game 7 for them and clinched the comeback. That was peak LeBron, right? I mean, he was just dominant throughout the entire playoffs. Next one I hit was Steph Curry, game 5 of the 2015 finals, right? That game where he finally shook off Dellavedova and exploded. 37-7, 13-23 in the field, 7 threes. He had that one over Dellavedova where he did the little cross hezi on the right, step back. Pretty much sent Dellavedova to the Bucks after that.
Yeah, I remember that pretty poorly.
And then the next one I have LeBron 2016 game 5, that 41-16-7, 16-30 from the field. Just I think that was like the first black jersey game where it was like, uh-oh, here they come. Also Kyrie, actually, I put him in this list too because I think they were both so phenomenal. It's weird that I would put 2 guys from the same game, but like that's what I would want LeBron and AD to do tomorrow, right? Would be to just dominate. So I had Kyrie in there, 41-6. He was 17-24, 5 of 7 from 3. I remember he couldn't miss. Clay was guarding him, Draymond, Steph. He literally could not miss. So that's those first 4. The next one I have is LeBron, 2016, game 6, the very next game. He was 41-11-8, 16-27 from the field. Just another dominant. I mean, I think they smoked Golden State that game, if I remember correctly. It was like a 15-point win. The next one I had we skip ahead. Now we get into the KD range. KD, 2017, game 2, the 33-13-6 with like 5 blocks, 3 steals. He was dominant from start to finish. I think he was 13-22 from the field. The rare one that I have in here for a loss, LeBron, 2018 game 1, at 51-8-8, where they went into overtime. It was the J.R. Smith debacle. But LeBron really controlled that game from start to finish.
That one I kind of want to hone in on because we found out I don't even know if this is true or if it was just LeBron going out there and doing lip service, but we found out after that series that LeBron, after that game 1 debacle with JR, went into the locker room and punched something and broke his hand or sprained his hand or whatever, and he came out after the loss, and that was the sweep, right? That was the sweep year. So
that was like first year Kyrie, I think, was in Boston. Like, they were it was like George Hill and JR were in the backcourt.
No, I mean, that Cavs team was the 4th seeded team. They hadn't even they had won 49 games, I think, in the regular season. They didn't even crack 50, and then LeBron just carried them through those playoffs. And then that game 1, everybody's like, "Oh, this series is done. There's no chance. KD's going to sweep them." And LeBron goes out there and does that 50-point performance, and basically just anytime Golden State picked up some momentum, LeBron was there to match it. And JR, yeah, I mean, you have to give JR credit for getting that rebound, but yeah, he should have shot it. I was so much in the moment too, and I don't even blame JR as much because I was so excited by him getting the rebound that I didn't even process the fact that he didn't shoot it. And after the ball was dead and LeBron started like pointing out, I was like, "Oh God, what are you doing, JR?" Like, it was just a typical sort of JR. Like, you live by JR, you die by JR, and it was just that whole disaster of that situation. I believe that if LeBron if he did actually go in the locker room and break his hand, I think that did definitely impact that series because he was so determined to just go out there and win. I'm not saying the Cavs win that series, but it's not a sweep by any means.
Yeah, that was his last. I considered that his last like really dominant offensive run because throughout those playoffs, like, again, he didn't have a lot of help. Like, I'll be honest, if we're gonna be fair,
it was all him. It was all him.
Again, I thought his defense slipped a lot that year, but I think he sacrificed it for the offense because they needed it so much more. And he, he was phenomenal. I remember he beat the Hawks, he beat the Celtics, the epic Game 7 there, where he really, Tatum did his best as a rookie, but LeBron closed in that fourth quarter. So but 51-8-8 in the finals, it's nothing to sneeze at. KD, my next one is number 8. KD 2018 finals, Game 3. He was 43-13-7, 15-23 from the field. He was unguardable in those two series. He was unguardable. He really was the best player in the world at that point for that time period. And then we get to Kawhi. I thought his Game 4 2019, he had 36-12. That was his like really dominant game. I don't remember if Clay missed that game or not. I didn't look that up. I know there was obviously the injury thing, but Kawhi he had so many great games in that playoffs, but in the finals, he really dominated start to finish. And then the last one is Jimmy. I feel like Jimmy, if you were to rank those 10 and add in any others, Jimmy you got to put him in the conversation somewhere in that top like 6-7 range because he was just, 40, 13, 11, 14, and 20 from the field. We talked about it. No 3-pointers, just getting to the line, getting buckets in his, his pockets and his spots, and just being, so good on defense, not doing LeBron. That he's phenomenal. I think that list right there there's so many impressive names and so many impressive games. And I think Jimmy being in there it's not an overreaction to the moment. It's not a fluke. It's completely justified and completely earned. I know I said a lot there. I said them all kind of quickly. Like, what do you guys think about that?
No, I think in that list, I think Jimmy's number 2. Or you can make a good argument on that because
you can't say it.
But I feel like now that you guys bring up LeBron in 2018, I think I witnessed that. I think I witnessed the most amazing individual playoff run by one player. It was incredible. I was like, I don't know how LeBron was an MVP that season. LeBron was playing ridiculous. That's what I'm saying. If LeBron plays like that, do you guys think he can still play like that on this Lakers team this series?
Yeah. He did it in Game 5 against Denver. I think he can do it.
Exactly. See, like now that he sees like, okay, what Miami's capable of with their adjustments and everything, don't you think he'll think about it a little bit? Like, you know what? I can still dominate these games offensively. Like, he's just too much of a big body for them. He's 6'8", like 2 something. And
he's got to get to the rim. I think he's got to get to the rim because he was effective doing that yesterday. Like, he would back down Butler, and Butler is a very good defender. And I said have done historically held him to worse percentages than his normal averages. But like, there was a couple times where LeBron just backed down Butler, and there was not a single thing he could do. But I will say it is a little bit tougher than the Denver series, and the fact that like LeBron they do have some guys to bother him, right? Like Iggy and Crowder and Butler can at least stop him from maybe getting to exactly the spot or the angle that he wants. So I still think he could go out. Like would not be surprised if LeBron gave us like 32, 12, and 10 tomorrow, hit a couple big threes late and got going. But then Miami can make him work a little bit more than Denver would have. Like, LeBron had his way. Whenever LeBron could have 50 in that Game 5 against Denver if he really wanted to. I don't know if he could. He'd have to work very hard to get to those numbers against Miami, but he's definitely still got the athleticism and IQ to do it.
Yeah, there's one player that you left off your list that I'm surprised we didn't see on there. Not even one single game from Dirk's finals run against the Heat. Because Dirk was He's so good in that series, and like not that he was putting up like crazy numbers, like he was averaging somewhere between 25 and 30 points a game, but he was just shooting at such a high clip, and it was like anytime he got the ball, it was just like he is the biggest threat on the floor. Even though LeBron and Wade and Bosh were all on the floor with him, it was insane. I'm surprised that you didn't put a single Dirk.
I felt the only ones that I put that were not. I always like to include both sides of the ball because I feel like it's important in the finals to play the two-way. So like all these like LeBron, Durant, the Kawhis, even Jimmy, like they also did very well on defense. All right, these are LeBron in his prime, very very good defender. The only guys that weren't on it were like the Kyrie game and the Curry game, but like Kyrie was 17 and 24, 41 points. Like I remember that game. The degree of difficulty on his shots were like A+. Like Clay was making him work. He was ridiculous. And then Curry in 15, like Curry's obviously not the best defender in the world, but that was his his FU game to Cleveland because he was hearing a lot of crap for getting guarded by Dellavedova throughout the entire series. Game 5 was, I think they were tied 2-2 at that point, right? Mm-hmm. So Game 5 was obviously the huge momentum swing. So Dirk had very good games in those 11 finals and that 11 playoffs. I mean, he smoked my Lakers and pretty much everybody else in his path. Yeah. I just felt that those two, if I was going to have like strictly offensive performances in here, I want like those two were a little bit higher. Mm-hmm. But I mean, it is insane. Like, I mean, you think about it.
Not going to take age into consideration. He was like doing that at 34 years old or however.
That's impressive. No, I know he is impressive. It was impressive, and believe me, it was all the sweeter that it was against LeBron and that Heat team in that first year. Yeah. I could not get. I've never hated a basketball team more. Mm-hmm. But I mean, it is impressive to look at the list, and I'm sure again you can make the case for a couple other. You could argue 3 more LeBron games, maybe another KD or 2. Like you can make the case for a bunch of others, but. Like the fact that KD's on there 2 or 3 times, LeBron makes this list 4 times. I mean that shows the longevity and the ability to rise to the occasion would be the phrase. In the finals. I mean, not everybody can do it. That's why this isn't a list of like 12 different names. So I mean, kudos to those guys and again, I like Jimmy Butler. I can't be. I was frustrated that they lost yesterday, but I was not like I didn't take it personally. Like I wasn't like F you Jimmy Butler. Like it was just like. He's just beating us. Like he's literally just beating us, and there's nothing we could do about it. So they have to play better. The Lakers, they got to come out with energy. They got to come out and be smart with the ball. And LeBron and AD have to start fast. I think those are the 3 biggest keys. If they do that, they can establish a lead early and not have to play from behind. I don't think the Lakers are great at playing from behind. They've done it a couple of times in these playoffs, like the Denver game. They almost came back. Even this game, they had the lead in the 4th.
Yeah.
I walked away for a couple minutes and I came back and they had the lead. But they're not a good enough shooting team, and they're not, especially on nights like last night where they're undisciplined on defense. It's not their game that you want to play. They're better with a lead with LeBron in his hands, dictating everything and kind of just picking what the defense is going to give them. So we'll see.
All right, let's close things out. Then I'll kind of. Are that your closing thoughts? Do you have anything else you wanted to add there? Or should I toss it down right now?
Ty Lue's going to the Clippers. I'm just like making my prediction again.
No, that's disgusting.
I'm just telling you. I know. I just want to put it on here so you know what I'm right again.
We all knew it was going to happen. It's just like, is it the right choice for this team with Kawhi and PG? No.
But I will say, I'll go Lakers. I always have to give a number, so I'll go Lakers 115, Heat 109. It'll be close. 109. Big some free throws late.
What you got, Henry? Closing thoughts?
I like that you always put like if that happens tomorrow, like NBS.
I almost got that one game.
Exactly. So our audience, you should listen to Jordan on that if you want to do some betting. But tomorrow, I can see it being a much closer game where it does go down the wire. What Jordan just said, it may come down to free throws. LeBron is not the best free throw shooter. Anthony Davis is a phenomenal free throw shooter for a big man. And the Heat are actually one of the best free throw shooting teams in the league. So if it comes down to that, it's just LeBron's got to connect. He can't have late game flukes that might cost his team the win, especially down the line. Do I see the Miami Heat? Do I see Jimmy Butler having another dominant game like this, like next game? Probably not, but probably somewhere near there where he drops like 28, 8 and 8, something like that. Do I see Kelly Olynyk playing good again? Yeah, I do, honestly. For someone that my brother thought he was like, who's that Amish guy? He doesn't watch basketball. I don't know how to explain and everything. But he liked him. Especially because he's showing more confidence now, and I can see that not just in his play, but the way he's defending Anthony Davis. So I can see Kelly Olynyk, showing up In terms of Duncan Robinson, finally put up double-digit figures. He's been getting very locked down this whole series. So can I see him putting up maybe 15 points next game? I can see that too. It's just I think it's going to be, it mainly comes down to who does the better adjustments, Frank Vogel or Eric Spoelstra. So it's more of a battle of the coaches at this point of who has the better plays, down the line, and then even pregame, like what they plan to start and everything. So that's my prediction. Do I see the Lakers winning? Yeah, I can see that. So no exact number, but Raj, what do you think?
Yeah, I just want to reiterate what I said earlier. Is like I think that the Lakers still have a pretty good handle on this series. They've lost one in every single series up to this point. This is exactly where they were against Denver. The only thing that troubles me a little bit for this Lakers loss is that they opened the door for possibly Bam and highly doubtful, but possible still that Goran could come back into the lineup. More likely that Bam comes back. And even if it's not tomorrow, if it happens in that game 5, it could, extend this series to 6 games. And that's not even what LA wants. LA wants to close it out as soon as possible. I think they're going to still close it out as soon as possible. I'm not too worried about them, but, it's still in the back of my head that it's possible that maybe Bam comes back and has one of those crazy Jason Tatum blocks and seals some sort of crazy game for them. And Jordan's going to hate me forever for cursing the Lakers or whatever, maybe. But I still feel pretty confident about this Lakers team. I'm not phased by this loss in any way like people have been in the past few series. I think this is standard. This is process. AD comes back with no foul trouble and he plays well in the next game. If LeBron is a lot more focused than he was in game 3, even if Jimmy is playing at the top of his game, those two guys at the top of their game will completely manhandle Jimmy at the top of his game. And that's just what it is. That's just what it is. But that'll bring us to a close for this episode. Thank you all for joining us. As always, please be sure to check out the Nuts and Bolts Sports. God, it's one of those weeks, guys. It's one of those. As always, please be sure to check out Nuts and Bolts Sports on all our social media platforms, as well as on YouTube, and find all our awesome shows. NFL season's in full swing now, so we've got all the NFL shows kicked off and all that. Thank you, Jordan, I think it was, or somebody, whoever did it, for dropping the link there in the description, bonfire.com. You can also try teamnbsmerch.com will take you to the same exact link, so both of those links will work. But be sure to visit that merch store. Be sure to pick up some awesome gear, and we'll be back on Friday, I guess, with another game reaction. No, what's today? Today's Monday, so Wednesday. God, Wednesday. I'm all over the place. Sorry, everybody.
It's Monday.
Come back and join us Wednesday, where we'll be talking about Game 4 and whether or not Miami got another